Good Thursday afternoon, and welcome to an abbreviated edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you for frankly, half a show today. We are off at 4:30 because we've got K-State hoops coming your way here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. As K-State takes on the Roos of UMKC, or just Kansas City. Although, as we say, when it comes to the Carrier Dome, they're not paying me. I can call them whenever I want. So, Kansas State is taking on UMKC coming up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Pregame begins at 4:30. Tip-off is set for 5:30 today.
Followed by women's basketball.
That's right, doubleheader.
Superstar Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes are coming to Manhattan tonight. So a bit of a marquee matchup on the women's side as K-State tries to keep some early season momentum going against one of the best teams in the country and one of the best players in the country.
Yeah, so that is going to be plenty of fun basketball involving the Kansas State Wildcats today. So we are only on for half a show. We've got a full show's worth of content, though, to jam in to the next 90 minutes.
We do promise it is half a show, but we will not half-ass it.
That is true.
We pledge always to use our entire asses, all 100% of them.
Yes, full ass every single day. We would love for you to be a part of this abbreviated show as well on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And, of course, you can chime in on our YouTube stream as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the YouTube account. Chime in the comments section. We can see it right away, just like you can on the text line. So happy to chat with you throughout the show today. Coming up on this shortened edition of the show, we'll get to the Chiefs and Chargers here in just a minute. And why I think, aside from the emotional element of the Chargers needing a win, this should be a game dominated by the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion. We'll also get our Thursday Night Football preview and parlay picks in today. We're not going to get them at 5:20 like we normally would, so we'll do them at 3:20 instead. Rick Peterson is going to join us bottom of this hour as we look ahead to the sub-state round of the high school football playoffs. Hayden Wildcats still involved, still got a chance to get back to the state championship game. And some other news and notes from around the high school sports scene. And a little Washburn, too. Pistols gotten to see the men and women for Washburn already this season. We'll get Pistols' thoughts on both programs as we start off the season. And it's Thursday. We're not going to be on the air at 5:30. So the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, kind enough to agree to come on with us earlier today. So we'll hear from Mitch coming up to lead off the 4 o'clock half hour of the show today. Lots to get to, and we would appreciate you if you wanted to chime in as well. We appreciate you regardless, but we would love to hear from you on anything we're talking about today on the Big O Tires text line or in the comments on our YouTube live stream. Let's dive right in with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers, though. Sunday Night Football. Are you sick of primetime games now? Or by now?
Yeah, I was ready for like a run of noon games, or even the 3:25 window is fine. It's kind of weird sitting around all day waiting for the Chiefs. I liked when they played at noon the other day. It was nice. They played the first game, watched them, and got on with my day.
By the way, this is off topic immediately, but we don't have headlines today, so breaking news we are going to bring up right away. They're moving the Bills-Browns game this weekend, so I hope you did not already bet the under in that game. I thought about it. It was 41.5, and it was going to be played in 4 feet of snow.
Yeah, it had tumbled. It had gone down 6 points from the opening number of 47.5. But yes, they're going to play it inside in Ford Field. You fools. You absolute cowards.
Sucks.
You deprive us of one of the great snow games in the history of the sport. Did we or did we not all have fun watching Maction in the snow last night?
It was awesome.
Western Michigan and Central Michigan playing in a snowstorm in the first half. Now the snow went away. They plowed it off. Second half was a little more normal, but the first half owned. It was the most exciting football you could have on a weeknight.
I will say the one reason I can understand this, other than them being cowards, they did declare a state of emergency for Western New York.
Okay.
I guess there were legitimate worries that people could actually get to like the non-player personnel who run the stadium, essentially. I guess there was legitimate concern that they could actually get to the game to like turn the lights on. So I get it. It sucks, but I kind of get it.
Like, yes, I do understand that from a logistic and from a public safety point of view, this is the thing to do. But from a football point of view,
trash.
Yes, it sucks.
Big trash.
I hate it. Yes.
The Chiefs and Chargers will not need to worry about weather. They're playing at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. You made the point yesterday, and I think it is a very good and very valid point, that the Chargers play the Chiefs tight. This is the Chargers Super Bowl this year, right? Because they're not going to make it anywhere near a Super Bowl if they don't win this game, because they are going to be fighting for the 7 or 6 seed in the postseason, certainly not the AFC West. I looked it up. In the last 9 games the two teams have played, so the Patrick Mahomes era, the Chiefs are 6-3. However, the point differential is just plus 15 for the Chiefs. That's not very much. So in a 3-game advantage, they're only plus 5 points a game. That's not very big. So everything has been about a 1-score game recently. You had 2 Chiefs wins by 10 points. The last 3 have been by a combined 12 points. The last 3 Chiefs wins in the head-to-head series by a combined 12 points, 2 of which went to overtime. So the Chargers have indeed played against the Chiefs well, because this has kind of been that Super Bowl type of game. When they've been good, it's a, hey, we're going to prove that we're good and we belong kind of game. And when they've been bad, it's the, well, let's play spoiler for the Chiefs kind of game. But I also, well, before I get to that part, we also have the part about, and I just mentioned a moment ago, Jordan Foote brought it up yesterday that, hey, the Chargers have a lot to play for in this game, because the division is effectively over if the Chiefs win. It's probably over anyway, but it is pretty much one hammer strike away from the nail being all the way in the coffin.
It is an effective 3.5 game division lead, because you would have the three more wins and you'd have the 2-0 tiebreaker. So the Chargers would have to win more games than the Chiefs in the course of the season to pass them in the division. We know already that's not happening for Denver and Vegas. So yeah, this would be the end of the division race for all intents and purposes.
Absolutely. But if you look at this game on paper, man, this should not even be close. Like, if you just want to look at what the Chargers have been doing recently, this game should not be close. In the last 4 games, Justin Herbert is averaging 5.2 yards in attempt. 5.2. For a guy with that arm and those natural gifts, 5.2 yards an attempt. That is gross. That is hideous. Ugh. It's nasty. If you want to go back 5 games, it ticks up like a 1/10 of a yard. It is awful what their offense is doing right now. No offense with a quarterback like that should be that awful to watch. And this is a different category even than I think Tampa Bay's offense being awful to watch. Now, they have just a crazy amount of talent, but Tom Brady's never been a quote-unquote flashy quarterback. Like, he very businesslike in how he quarterbacks a game. Herbert has a massive arm. He can chuck it all over. He is willing to throw it in between 4 different defenders into a tiny little window, almost Brett Favre-like in the way he can just launch a ball like an RPG through a tight window. And their offense is just miserable. They're getting, in all likelihood, at least it sounds this way, their 2 best receivers back for this week, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. What can they do off of these injuries, especially Allen? We haven't seen Allen all year.
Yeah, he's only played in 2 games. Williams stumbled on his name there for a second. Williams has missed the last 2. So it's not as though Williams departing the offense or Allen departing the offense is a line of demarcation for this was looking like this before they went out, and now it looks like this without them. The thing that fascinates me about the Chargers passing game is they don't give up sacks. They've given up the fewest sacks in the NFL. Do you know that?
I did, because I looked it up last night while doing my my prep for the show. And I went to Football Outsiders, and I was looking at their offensive line statistics, their basic line numbers. And I said, wait, number 2 in adjusted sack rate, that can't be right. There's no way they can be number 2. Not with Jamari Salyer, however you say his name, starting at left tackle. Like, there's no way.
It turns out Salyer's been awesome.
Yeah.
And that they aren't
Salyer, thank you.
Yeah, and they aren't giving up sacks. 13 total sacks.
It's crazy.
9 games. So you think to yourself, well, Justin Herbert's an athletic guy. Maybe he's making some plays with his legs. You know what Justin Herbert's season high in rushing attempts and yards is?
5-16.
5-22.
Ooh, that was close.
You were. Both of them came last week. against the San Francisco 49ers. So no.
Who you can't pass against.
Right. So no.
Unless you're the Chiefs.
Justin Herbert is not exactly killing the game on the scramble drill either. He's not out there extending plays with his legs or making plays down the field with his legs. When I think about what the Chiefs ought to do defensively against this Charger team, honestly, I'm wondering if they should ever blitz. Pressure with 4, leave 7 in coverage, dare them to make a throw on you down the field. Because chances are, we have seen from this offense, their primary passing threat, their primary receiving threat is going to be Austin Eckler on the check down or a tight end on a quick out. Like, those were the guys who got the most targets against San Francisco. I think it was Eckler and Trey McKitty were the guys with the most targets. That's their number 2 tight end. So that's what they are. That's what they do in the passing game. And no sense in pass rush. Like, bring in an extra guy. No, leave that guy in coverage. Dare Herbert to make the plays that he hasn't been able to make all season long. But that being said, back to your original point, the point I was making yesterday about this game being the Chargers Super Bowl and the Chargers just playing better against the Chiefs than they do against any other team. The Chargers gained 401 yards of total offense against the Chiefs back in week 2. They have surpassed that only twice this season. They gained 326 yards through the air. They have surpassed that only once. That was against the Texans, which, of course, they did that to the Texans.
Of course.
The only other game in which they've gained more than 400 yards of total offense, that was in the Browns game where they rushed for 238 yards because the Browns are just unserious as a rushing defense. That's the only game where they've gained more than 91 yards on the ground. They have no other 100-yard rushing games other than that. The Chargers allowed 319 yards total against the Chiefs. They have only outdone that as a defense twice. One of those times was against the Denver Broncos, which barely counts as an NFL offense. And the other was against the Atlanta Falcons, who threw for 114 yards. So they brought it against the Chiefs in week 2. And now they're a very different looking team right now than they were in week 2. J.C. Jackson, though he didn't play well, memorably got cooked by Justin Watson on a deep ball for a Chiefs touchdown.
Yep.
He's out. He's not a factor. Bosa, he's out. He's not a factor. So those are 2 pretty important defensive players. I mean, they still have Khalil Mack. They still have Kyle Van Noy. They still have Derwin James. They still have some really good players. But the whole is, once again, the story of the Chargers. The whole does not match the sum of the parts. That being said, the parts, those guys I just mentioned, Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, those guys will be the best versions of themselves in all likelihood against the Chiefs because this game means that much to them, and they tend to play their best against the Chiefs.
Look at what the Chiefs are like, all of that, and then look at what the Chiefs are doing right now. Like, the offense looks as good as it's looked in 3 years. I mean, the defense is playing well right now, and you could certainly make the argument the defense is going to get an extra rejuvenating boost, an injection of energy this week with Frank Clark coming back. Not that Frank Clark is an all-pro or something like that, but that is going to be more depth at the pass rush, or for the pass rush, at the edge spots. That is going to give an extra break to George Karlaftis. It's an extra break to Carlos Dunlap. Although, shoot, the way Dunlap is playing, maybe you don't even want to take him off the field because he's been playing so well. But it's going to keep guys a little bit fresher for a little bit longer. I know it's the NFL. I know it is any given Sunday. And I understand that this game means a lot to the Chargers, and they're going to be up for it, right? The way the Raiders had been in recent years, too, in the Gruden years, when they always played tough against the Chiefs. Then, obviously, they fell apart. Gruden didn't really have his team play well against anyone else. You get the point. I look at the stats. I look at the recent production. I look at the coaching. I don't even know what the spread is for this game. I haven't even taken a look at it.
So it's at 5.5 as of this morning.
Like, I'm taking the Chiefs. I'm taking Chiefs alternate spread. Give me 6.5. Like, I know I'm not even a Chiefs fan, but I'm doing the homer thing where how do they not blow this team out? But seriously, aside from just vibes, I don't know how the Chiefs don't blow this team out. I really don't.
Yeah, it's hard to make the argument for it just based upon how the Chargers have played and how the Chiefs have played. The only thing I can come up with is the argument that because all of these games have been close, and I think
it's actually moved to 6, by the way.
Oh, has it jumped back up?
Back to 6.
Well, there was some speculation that line was moving because of some uncertainty about the Chiefs receiver core, because obviously yesterday was not a good practice report for the Chiefs. They had 3 of their top 4 wide receivers, their top 3 really out of practice yesterday. It sounded like Marquez Valdez-Scantling was back today, so his illness did not preclude him from returning to practice today. Juju was still out. McCole Hardman was still out, but Valdez-Scantling at least gives you a body and a deep threat, and somebody else you can roll out there with Sky Moore and with Justin Watson. And I think Mahomes can beat the Chargers with those 3 guys and Kadarius Toney. And Travis Kelce. I think that's good enough.
Yeah, you know why it's good enough? Because number 15 is going to be playing quarterback. Justin Watson might have 6 catches for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. And would anyone be surprised? No, because Patrick Mahomes is throwing him the ball. Because a lot of times, truly great coaches can find a way to make up for the loss of skill position players. I hate that phrase, but you know what I mean when I say it's quote-unquote skill position players. Because they can make it up with game plans and they can play up the other strengths of their superstar quarterback. You know, coaches who have been able to do that? Andy Reid, great example of that. In recent years, not as much this year for the most part, Matt LaFleur has been able to do that with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. The Patriots were running you and me out there at receiver in the early 2010s, and we're still winning divisions year in and year out. You know who hasn't been able to do that one bit? Is Joe Lombardi running the offense for the Los Angeles Chargers. Their offense just, it sucks. It is bad. And the thing is, Mike Williams is a deep threat. Keenan Allen's not. He's not a push it down the field kind of guy. He's a 10-yard out kind of guy. And he's effective because he's got really good hands, and he's got pretty good hands, and he's a very good route runner. But he's not a stretch the field kind of receiver. He's more like an old reliable type of receiver. I don't know. I understand why the spread is what it is, because a divisional matchup with something at least riding on it for the underdog, if you went over 6 points, that'd be kind of crazy. But on paper, at the very least, this seems like a game the Chiefs should be able to absolutely dominate. And I hope they do. And I think they're going to. I will say, for as much as this game is going to impact what this year could look like for the Chargers in general in 2022, if you come out and lay an egg against the Chiefs, if you're the Chargers, seats got to get a couple degrees hotter for Brandon Staley, right? I know it's only year 2 for him, but you've got to think that turns up the heat a little bit more. That this team that was hyped up as being the heir to the throne in the AFC West, is Herbert just as good as Mahomes? And is this going to be the best division ever? And the Chargers, this might finally be their year. They stink. They are miserable to watch. And as much as you can say, well, hey, Brandon Staley's not calling the offense, who hired the guy who's calling the offense? With years of data to prove this guy cannot handle it.
And if
That's not Staley.
And if he is the defensive guy, then why is he the defensive guy with all those additions they made to try and be better against the run? Sebastian Joseph Day, Otito Ogbonnia, all those guys that they brought in to try and get better against the run. Why are they still stink stopping the run? Why are they 30th in the league stopping the run?
Great question.
If that's your stock and trade, it's the same question we ask about Nathaniel Hackett in Denver, right? If you were brought in to be the offensive guy, why do you have the worst offense in the NFL? Why do you score the fewest points in the NFL?
Great point.
And if you're the coach and that's going to be your thing and you're the worst at it, why do you get to keep being the head coach? No, I think that is a very valid question to start asking about Brandon Staley moving forward. He has to make maybe some significant staff changes before they can move forward with him. That
is something that I don't think head coaches get enough flack for when it goes south. And I was saying that back in 2018 when we had another year of Bob Sutton, and it was the defense being absolutely miserable that cost the Chiefs a bid in Super Bowl 53. That should have been Chiefs Rams that year. But hey, Andy, you've got 5 or 6 years of Bob Sutton being terrible at this. When are you gonna make the call here, pal?
Right.
I've said it about my favorite team that, hey, Matt LaFleur has hired 6 coordinators in his time in Green Bay area. It might be 7 now, actually. Most of them have stunk. Currently, the offense is no good. The defensive coordinator hires have all been bad. Special teams have been bad. Like, what are you doing? Coaches have to get the blame for that. And you can say, well, Staley doesn't run the offense. Well, one, he's the head coach, so he better have some sort of connection with his quarterback. Bill Belichick sure does. You think Bill Belichick doesn't have his hands in that offense? Of course he does. But you're also the one hiring the guys in charge of that side of the ball, so you better be able to figure it out. Also, to be fair, Staley was a college quarterback, was he not? Like, he played on the offensive side of the ball when he was a player. So it's not like he's, linebacker to the core. That's not exactly who Brandon Staley is. We'll talk more about this game coming up later on in this abbreviated edition of the show when Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, joins us to lead off the 4 o'clock hour. Right now, though, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. Look ahead to Thursday night football tonight. The Packers versus the Titans. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Are the Packers getting too much credit, though, after beating the Cowboys? We'll discuss next on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan back with you on 580 Sports Talk. Little Pitbull getting us back into the segment.
Our YouTube listeners / viewers cannot hear the music, but they can see us grooving and moving over here. Yeah, they know it's something good.
Fireball by Pitbull. Fireball.
We do not want to get DMCA'd. That would be bad for everyone. So
no, and unfortunately, very against our brand if Pitbull was the one to bring us down.
Right?
That would not go well. Before we get to the actual game tonight on Thursday Night Football, by the way, Rick Peterson is going to join us in just under 10 minutes for our Invista Credit Union High School whip around as we look ahead to the sub-state round of the postseason in football, plus plenty more. Packers-Chargers tonight.
Titans,
yeah. I'm still got Chargers on the brain. Packers-Titans tonight at Lambeau. Do you have any interest in the Thursday Night Football alternate telecast with LeBron James's The Shop crew, featuring tonight LeBron James, his agent / assistant / money guy Maverick Carter, Paul Rivera, I don't know who that is. I have no idea who Paul Rivera is. Jamie Foxx, Jalen Ramsey, Rob Lowe, and Dez Bryant, all at The Shop, live watching and reacting to Packers Titans.
Oh boy. Like all at once? Like, is Rob Lowe really going to kick it with those guys for 4 hours?
I kind of hope so, because that would be a hilarious environment, but I don't know if they're going to end up doing it like the Manning cast, where everyone gets kind of a quarter, or gets a half a quarter, or what. I'm really not sure. But I'm not interested in this. Like, I don't need to watch LeBron pretend he knows X's and O's for 3 hours. Like, I'm sure he's gonna watch. Like, that's cool. But just tweet like the rest of us. I don't need to watch this.
I don't know. Jamie Foxx is really funny. I mean,
I like Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, maybe it'd be good for a chuckle or two while he's in the shop.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I probably won't peek at it either. To be honest with you,
it's odd. I really don't understand. Will Rob Lowe be playing or appearing in character as his character on 911 Lone Star? So there's going to be some cross promotion here.
I don't think so.
That's pretty much Rob Lowe, though. Like, he's just playing himself.
Yeah, Rob Lowe has been playing himself ever since he was on Parks and Rec.
If not, like, earlier. He was probably playing himself in The Outsiders. Very much was probably just young Rob Lowe. Yeah, so that's the...
Is he going to wear his NFL hat?
Oh, my God, I hope so. Oh, God, I
One
hope
of
so.
the funniest things ever. Fox. That was when they were rolling out 911. I always call it 9/11. 911 Lone Star. And they had him. It was the NFC Championship game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was the NFC Championship game, and Rob Lowe's in the stands, and he's wearing a hat that just has the NFL shield on it. Like, I am a fan of football.
Did you see the ads they did for Sunday Night Football last week on NBC?
Yes.
When he was like, you all know I love football. I especially like California football. And then just vaguely talked about the Niners and Chargers. Very funny.
From the Big O Tires text line, the 785, we have a texter pointing out that he is the token on this broadcast.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. I mean, maybe Rob Lowe and LeBron are tight. I don't know. Maybe. Famous people have all sorts of weird connections, but it's very, very odd. The game itself, Packers-Titans. Packers right now are favored by 3.5. This spread has moved all over the place. I hate to be a pessimist, especially about the team that I'm an owner of. People do forget that. I think the Packers are getting way too much credit for their win over the Cowboys last week. Like, yes, it was an impressive win. Rodgers looked good. Christian Watson was awesome. Aaron Jones was awesome. That is the first time since week 2 the Packers offense has looked competent.
I mean, you like to think maybe they found something with Christian Watson, and hopefully they can get the running game going. Also, it's going to be cold.
Yes.
And cold in Lambeau has usually meant the Packers win.
The last time the Titans played the Packers in a cold Lambeau Field game in 2020, Derrick Henry had like 60 yards, and the Packers won by multiple scores. So you could lean on that. I'm more inclined to think that probably won't be the case. I would like for the Packers to win, but I would take the Titans plus 3.5 here if I was picking the spread.
Yeah.
Which I'm not, but I would.
I would too. Getting the hook is what would entice me, because it does feel like it might be something close, 20-17, 21-17, something along those lines.
Definitely a low scoring game, though.
Yeah. I am interested to see if Green Bay can keep their passing game momentum from last week going, because that's a good defense that Rodgers had a really big game against. Christian Watson had the 3 touchdowns. And if he's entered the circle of trust for Aaron Rodgers, that should make the passing game open up a little bit.
In theory, it should.
That being said, because it's a cold weather game, with Aaron Jones kind of hobbled on that ankle, how effective is he going to be running the ball if Green Bay wants to mix that in?
Yeah.
And you would think, even though it didn't happen this way in 2020, you would think that a cold weather game would be perfect for what the Titans want to do on offense.
In theory, it would. Let's get to our FanDuel same game parlay picks for tonight. We've got fairly similar odds for ours. I'm going to go with 3 position players to get to a couple of statistical benchmarks. I've got Aaron Jones, 50 plus rushing yards. That's minus 148 on its own. Christian Watson, say he does okay, 40-plus receiving yards for Christian Watson. That's minus 120. And Nick Westbrook-Akine of the Titans just has to go 25 or more receiving yards. I think he will. Packers are banged up in the secondary. Super weak there. I think he can get to 25 yards. So that, in total, will get you plus 494. $10 bet would win you $49 plus dollars. $100 on it would win you a $494.
So I am going with the alternate over 37.5. I feel like 21-17 feels kind of about how this game is going to shake out. The actual over-under is 41.5, but I am going with an alternate number and going over 37.5. Under on Ryan Tannehill's passing yard total, 184.5. I think this is going to be a very Derrick Henry kind of game.
Yep.
Be very surprised if either Tannehill is designed to throw that much or if the game gets away into a script where the Titans have to throw it a bunch. Speaking of in and out of the circle of trust, Robert Tonyan appears to have exited Aaron Rodgers' circle of trust lately. Only got one target last week. His over-under receiving yards total was 28.5. I am going under on that for a bet of plus 547. Those are the odds on that parlay. $10 will win you $54.70. $100 will win you $547. NFL same-game parlays are the perfect way to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payday. And you can bet a no-sweat same-game parlay from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It doesn't matter if you're new to FanDuel or already have an account. You get free bets back if your Thursday night same-game parlay doesn't hit. You can build your own or tail one of us or choose from one of the popular ones pre-built for you in FanDuel's app. However you want to play, you can bet the NFL on Thursday night with a no-sweat same-game parlay. Just sign up with my promo code Lucero if you don't already have an account. If you already have FanDuel, you're all set. Just sign in to see what you've got. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and present in Kansas. 3 or more legs, minimum $1 bet required. Refund issues, non-withdrawable free bets. Expire 7 days after receipt. Max free bet, $5. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
By the way, we have a texter from the 402 who says they are also an owner of the Packers, which officially makes this show an owners meeting then. This is a league-sanctioned owners meeting at this point.
I'll see myself out then.
We're going to take a quick timeout. Rick Peterson joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. Every Thursday at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, Rick Peterson joins us for our Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round, brought to you obviously by Invista Credit Union. You can follow Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. And of course, go check out all of his fantastic work covering prep sports and Washburn sports over at topsports.news. How's it going, Pistol? What's going on?
It's going good. I'm just out at the state champs basketball practice right now.
Oh, well, let's dive into that right now. Pretty exciting time of year, obviously, for the Seaman Vikings and for the Washburn Rural Junior Blues 2 state champions from high school basketball. Who are you visiting today?
Washburn Rural right now.
And that is a program we should also mention, not only coming off of many of those same girls, a volleyball state championship, now another Division I athlete in the mix as well. We know Brooklyn DeLay, volleyball at Kentucky. Zoe Canfield earlier this year committed to play college basketball at Kansas. And now Jada Ingram as well. How about that? She is headed to UNLV to play college volleyball. So that's a pretty darn athletic roster for Kevin Bordewick.
Well, yeah, and I get two of those that you just mentioned are playing basketball, and I really appreciate that. You know, we've talked many times about how I really like multi-sport kids, and Brooklyn and Zoe are both just a few weeks from volleyball. They're now turning their attention to basketball.
Yeah, that is truly impressive for the two of them. We do have plenty to get to today, even though most of the fall sports have wrapped up. The winter sports are beginning here in just a couple of weeks, which is crazy to think about. Do want to get to the gridiron, though, here, Pistol. We do still have one team from the city that is left in the postseason with the sub-state round coming up tomorrow, and that is the Hayden Wildcats, who are now 10-1 on the year. They get to take on Holton coming up in Holton on Friday night. 10-1 versus 10-1. The only loss of the year for Hayden was against this Holton group, but I don't think you could ask for anything more, Pistol, if you're Hayden than to get a chance to get a little bit of revenge from the earlier part of the season.
Well, I think the big thing is they just don't feel like they played well. I've talked at length with Coach Arnold, and they thought they just weren't prepared mentally to go out there and do what they needed to do. And I expect a lot closer game tomorrow night.
And to that point, what do you think it is going to take for Hayden to play that better game? Because I heard the same thing from Bill Arnold when we spoke earlier this week, that they just didn't feel like they were really in rhythm, struggled offensively and defensively. What do you think it'll take for Hayden to put together a more complete game to keep this one closer and possibly come out on top?
Well, to beat Holton, you got to slow down their rushing attack. You're not going to stop it, but you got to at least slow down. And you can't give up nearly 500 yards in offense like they did the first time. So I think that's the major thing. Then they got to obviously get their offense going. They're going to need more than, I believe it was 13 points the first game. They're going to need more than that. And just, especially on the road, give yourself a chance in the second half, which, they just kind of let it get out of hand the first time.
Rick Peterson is our guest, covers preps and Washburn sports for topsports.news. Of course, head to the website for all the best coverage of our local teams, and you can also check out Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. I do have to make this comment, Pistol. It really sucks for Hayden that they are going to now play 4 playoff games. They could play a maximum of 5 postseason games with 1 at home, despite maybe having a 1-loss record for the year. I understand how these things break and how they fall, but that does seem almost a little bit unfair to the Wildcats.
Basically, if you don't win your district, that's what the current system does, and that's exactly what it did to them. By losing to Holton the first time, it put them in a deal after it got that first home game that they're on the road the rest of the way. And no, I don't like it. I think we maybe, because there's teams getting home games that have a lot fewer wins than 10. So I just think I would like to see them do it more based on records. And they used to do it. The teams that had the fewest home games got a chance to host again. And in that case, Hayden would probably be home this week. So, but it's not my place to decide. But yeah, it's crazy to play that many road games in a row.
And 2, I mean, you mentioned teams that had far fewer wins. I mean, Columbus last week, who Hayden played on the road, they were 5-5. going into that game.
Yeah.
What is the rationale for the bigger classes just having the higher seeds play, but that not being the rationale for the lower classes?
Yeah, that's that's a good question, and I think what it's going to take is some people that have a lot more power than me and you to talk to them about that. But yeah, I just think I just don't that many road games in a row. You're exactly right. It just doesn't seem kosher. But I don't know if there's anything in the works to change that. I would like to see him go to the same system that 5A and 6A have.
No, I'm right there with you in that regard. That is our only hyper-local team that's in action this weekend. Are there any other games from around the state, Pistol, that you've caught wind of that you're kind of interested to see play out?
Yeah, I want to see how the Manhattan Derby game plays out. And Derby will be without their standout quarterback, and so I think that could definitely play into that. The fact that the Derby will be looking for some revenge after Manhattan beat them in overtime in week 1. That's a game that really interests me. I'll be off somewhere else doing basketball, but I'll be paying attention to that score.
Some other news and notes from the football season wrapping up. Over at topsports.news, you've got the list of some of the all-league honors for various leagues around the area. That includes the all-Meadowlark Conference picks for football. And Pistol, can you remember the last time there were this many first or second team honorees from Highland Park?
Well, no. I mean, no.
Maybe never?
Yeah, probably never. I mean, in '91 they made it to the 5A semifinal, sub-state, whatever you want to call it. But other than that, no, I wouldn't think so, because they were always in the Centennial League with really, really good teams.
I mean, to come away with, and I know it's a new league, and I know the level of competition is different than what they were playing in the Centennial League, or like some of their former league mates are now facing in the UKC. But to come away with the offensive and defensive players of the year, the return man of the year, and the coach of the year, that's pretty darn special, all from one team that had gone 8 years without a single win.
Yeah, and the one that surprised me the most, I mean, the fact that Trey got a bunch, his stats speak for themselves.
Yeah.
But to get the defensive player of the year, I thought that was really big, and that was a really nice honor for that young man.
Over in the aforementioned United Kansas Conference, should note as well, pretty good showing for the Topeka schools between West, between Heights, and between Seaman on their all-league team this year as well. We talked about it throughout the year, Pistol. The UKC really, really competitive, will be in a lot of sports, but certainly in football this year. That's a pretty good first-year showing, especially for the new additions in Seaman as well as Topeka West.
Yeah, and I think, Heights had 4 first-teamers,
yeah.
Seaman 2 first-teamers, and Topeka West, Xavier Alexander got first team. Hey, punter, but it's still first team. So I think they did well, and then a ton of guys like on the second team and honorable mention.
If not for the fact that Leavenworth's quarterback, Eddie McLaughlin, who I know you got to see in person too, Pistol, if he had not been like the high school version of Michael Vick, I think Alan Bowman probably comes away, with the league offensive player of the year. McLaughlin was truly, truly special, though.
Yes, and I have no argument with that. And maybe next year for Bauman, because he's only a junior. So and they got Johnny Heights has a good line coming back.
Yeah,
so,
they absolutely do.
He just may have to wait a year.
A couple more things we want to get to from you, Pistol, as we're talking to Rick Peterson for our Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around here on 580 Sports Talk. Go check out all of Pistol's great work at topsports.news. You got to see a little Washburn basketball over the last few days as well. Washburn basketball coverage ramping up over at topsports.news. Let's start on the women's side of things, because you got to see the Washburn women first this past weekend. Obviously, under new first-year head coach Laura Wessling, Washburn graduate, has had a very successful coaching career in recent years out in Colorado at Western State. What did you think of the Washburn women when you got to see them in one of their early season contests this week?
Well, on Friday, when they rung up 71 points, I didn't think they'd ever be beaten. And then, and then less than 24 hours later, they struggled. So I think that's one, early season, new coach, and then also a lot of new players. And arguably their best player, Abby Oliver's currently out. So I think there are going to be some ups and downs. I'm going to see them again tomorrow night and Saturday. And so, I will know a little more then, but I just think it's going to take a while.
As for the Washburn men, they're off to a 2-1 start to the year. I was at their action in Kansas City this past weekend. And then last night took on William Jewell at home at Lee Arena. And they lost a stunner to Billy Jewell last year, but they came back, hard-fought win last night. And I got to tell you, Pistol, some of the guys who are returning for this team, the Connor Defabaws of the world, they've got obviously plenty of talent there. And Michael Keegan, among others. We know their talent. Some of these young guys, though, Pistol, are really impressing me so far this year.
Well, the two freshmen, the true freshmen, really impressed me last night. Brady Christensen goes 9 and 19 and 11 offensive boards. I don't care if you're a fifth-year senior, you don't see that too often. So that really impressed me. And the other kid, who I didn't even know much about until he just all of a sudden caught fire on Saturday in the tournament. And then he just, again, he had 14 points last night. His name escapes me right this minute.
Jarmel Johnson, Pistol. Jarmel Johnson out of George Washington in Denver, Colorado. Same alma mater as Chauncey Billups.
Yeah, no, and he really, I got to talk to both those kids last night, and they really got their heads on straight, and they said they don't seem to be intimidated by getting thrown in early in the season, and I think both of those are going to do well, and they're going to have to because, you don't have Tyler Guyman and some of those guys to turn to anymore. So I think Washburn's going to be fine, but again, they're probably going to have some ups and downs.
Yeah, certainly when you've got to rely on so many young players. All right, Pistol, that'll do it for us today. I got to know, though, with football winding down, with the fall sports winding down, what does this weekend calendar look like for you?
Well, it's always busy. I got Isaac going up to Holton, which if it was 50, 60 degrees, that might be Rick Peterson heading that way. But
I don't blame you at all.
Like I said last week, hey, Lee Arena's 72 degrees. So I'll be keeping track of everything, but I'm going to be where it's a little warmer.
Hey, I do not blame you for that one bit. Rick Peterson, covers all things prep sports and Washburn sports for topsports.news. Head to the website for the best coverage of our local teams. You can also follow Pistol all the time on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. As always, Pistol, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you next week, hopefully with a state championship game to preview.
All right, great.
That is Rick Peterson from topsports.news. Always great stuff from Pistol. We got some breaking news here at the very end of the hour. McCole Hardman is going on injured reserve for the Chiefs. That is tough.
Hate it for him.
Yeah, he was getting into a role that fit him so well and consistently.
Makes that Kadarius Toney trade look even smarter.
Way smarter. Bet he's going to have a big role this weekend. Almost no doubt about that. We're going to take a break. Mitch Holthus will join us to lead off the 4 o'clock half hour of 580 Sports Talk. now, final half hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way on the Sports Voice of Kansas and on YouTube. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you. We are off an hour and a half early today due to K-State basketball. Tip at 5:30, pregame at 4:30 on the Wildcat Sports Radio Network. K-State taking on UMKC, the Roos today. Women's basketball to follow as well, a men's-women's doubleheader today. So we are off extra early. And to start off this 4 o'clock half hour, we are very lucky to be joined by the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, as a courtesy, as always, of Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch joining us over an hour early, almost a full hour and a half early today because we are off early. So, Mitch, we appreciate the time. First things first that we've got for you today, Mitch, is before we look ahead to Chiefs-Chargers in primetime this weekend, I do want to look back, at least momentarily, on the game against the Jaguars from this past week. What was the most impressive part? What stood out to you the most about this weekend's matchup between the Chiefs and the Jags?
Well, it wasn't just the singular game. It was all of the dynamics that happened on one of those perfect storm weekends when, like we did on the Kingdom Show, you had to check off all the boxes. Was, the rest of the division had to lose. Chargers lose. But then the Buffalo Bills lose when they had a 99.1% chance of winning, and the Chiefs took care of their business. So to check all the boxes on a weekend rarely happens, and now it puts the Chiefs, I said earlier, like K-State football and the Chiefs are in a parallel universe. They both have destiny in front of them and in their own hands. They take care of business. They'll both get where they want to go. But right now, the Chiefs are the number one team in the AFC, as everyone knows, but very few would have expected that a month ago or after the Bills' loss.
How good was it to see in that game in particular, Isaiah Pacheco really come out and have a solid game? Because we remember the week before a win, but a tough day running the ball for everybody except Patrick Mahomes. And like you told us last week, you want to be a little more selective about when Patrick is running because, well, his health is obviously paramount to the team's success. So to see Pacheco go out there, average over 5 yards a carry, just have a very steady game on the ground, how important was that for this Chiefs offense to see, and how much did you enjoy watching that unfold?
Well, I loved watching it. I think I also said that if we're having, because we discussed about the Chiefs, the very thing that you mentioned in the game against Tennessee, but I said I thought it was opponent specific to the Titans, that if we were having the same discussion after the Titan game, that after the Jaguar game, then it's an issue. But for the fact that the Chiefs got the running game going, especially with Pacheco and some explosive runs, to be honest, and the offensive line was getting after it, much like they did against Tampa Bay, then it was good to see. Knowing that the running game was back. But again, it goes week to week. And the fact that Tennessee did such a good job at defending it is more about Tennessee than the Chiefs' lack of execution.
I wanted to ask about a couple other young players as well, and the fact that more guys are getting involved in this offense. And we've spoken about it in recent weeks, how well the Chiefs have been able to spread the wealth, so to speak, and Mahomes looking for different guys in the passing game. I noticed Noah Gray has made a couple of plays in back-to-back weeks now, had the great catch against Tennessee, had the touchdown this past week. You've gotten McCole Hardman's a little bit older, but he's gotten more involved when he's been healthy. What do you make of some of the old, still young, but maybe have been around 1 or 2 years, some of those guys and the way they've developed and grown in this offense this season?
Yeah, it's actually been kind of a hat and glove opportunity and situation. We're sitting here maybe on a historic season. The fact that the Chiefs have had 10 different players catch touchdown passes, the all-time NFL record is 13. I could see the Chiefs getting 14 different guys to catch touchdown receptions. But to answer your question, it has been this kind of rise among the younger players to get integrated. And Noah Gray, I think, fits your category. Justin Watson, who was not with us last year, but has been around for a while. Just the fact that they've become now very impactful pieces just accentuates and complements the guys that have been productive throughout their careers, a.k.a. Kelsey. So, or E.G. Kelsey, I should say, for example, Travis Kelsey. But we're sitting here looking at a team that very much like I predicted during training camp was going to be able to attack you vertically and still attack horizontally. And with Kadarius Toney, now you have a legitimate horizontal threat to go along with McCole Hardman, of course, is injured.
Our guest is Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us every Thursday on the program, courtesy of our friends at Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union.
Mitch, Kadarius Toney had his breakout performance as a Chief on Sunday. 4 catches for 57 yards, caught his first NFL touchdown, also made an impact in the running game as well. He seems to be somebody who's made a fast first impression on his teammates, his coaches, and maybe most importantly for a wide receiver, his quarterback. What things about Toney have enabled him to make such a positive early impression and early impact?
Some guys love to play, and it fits right in with their God-given ability and then instinct. He's got all of that. It's amazing how he is processed in a quick amount of time, but I think it's his desire, and he has fun playing. I mean, you'd like to think every player has fun playing. It's a very difficult game to play, especially at the National Football League level, but Toney's having fun. Fits right in. He's got incredible instinct. I think we're just getting started with Kadarius Toney. And with McCole Hardman being out with the abdomen injury, that Toney becomes, instead of a luxury, center stage. But I think he's ready to fill that role, at least till Hardman gets back. And then you've got what you had when you had Hartman and Tyreek Hill, which are both dynamic receivers who can hit the distance on any given play, no matter the play design or down and distance or ball location.
We've talked a lot about offense. I want to shift focus to the other side of the ball, as I thought they had another good afternoon against the Jaguars. They've got a lot of offensive talent, some really intriguing young pieces. The Chiefs hold them to 17. They rack up 5 sacks. And one player I want to point out in particular who's really made an impact the last 2 weeks, it seems like this is Colin Saunders coming into his own as a talent, a guy who was really regarded as a potential big-time talent coming out of the draft. The Chiefs got him in the 3rd round. He's dealt with some injuries, but boy, he's really come on this season, and especially in the last 2 weeks. How important has his growth been in complementing what everybody else on the line with him does?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that we can talk defense here in many ways. We probably should have talked about it first. I mean, when I do the same thing. You look at the team offensively, and then you go to defense. But when I reviewed the video after the Jacksonville game, I'm thinking, man, I am not giving enough attention to this defense. Let's take Colin Saunders. We saw flashes of it in 2019. Remember, he was pretty highly regarded coming out of Western Illinois as just being a big man that was athletic. And he gave glimpses in that Super Bowl championship season. Then he had an injury, COVID. The COVID years hit, and then he had trouble with some weight. Well, he purposed himself to get ready for this season, to drop weight, become faster, and to be ready to go. And so Colin has turned himself. His quickness now is unusual for a big man. I'm not saying he's Aaron Donald, so everybody can slow down. He's got some of those characteristics, meaning his leverage, the way he's built, and then his foot quickness in quick twitch, like in the first couple instances of a play. Colin can make those plays. So yeah, he's been impressive. And then I'm going to throw in there while we're talking, and I don't want to, maybe I'm stealing your next question, but what we're also underrating, and it really jumped off the page or off the video when I was reviewing the Jacksonville game, with the speed of Nick Bolton and Willie Gay Jr. Whether it's a bubble screen or a screen, the linebackers have to play inside first. You got to play the run, but you need reinforcements on a flank attack when you get one of those bubble screens. And Willie Gay Jr. and Nick Bolton are spectacular. And it's the biggest difference in the 2022 Chiefs team than any team Andy Reid has had, is that speed at linebacker. Something I talked about Steve Spagnuolo today that'll be paramount, because I know you're headed to the Chargers next. And those linebackers will be the centerpiece of the defense this week if the Chiefs are going to win.
Well, let's talk about this matchup Sunday night with the Los Angeles Chargers playing host to the Chiefs. A very vital game for the Chargers as they try and keep their playoff and AFC West championship hopes alive. Been an up and down year for the Chargers, but they've played the Chiefs as tough as anybody, going all the way back to that Thursday night game at Arrowhead back in week 2. And really over the course of recent history, nobody has played the Chiefs tougher than the Los Angeles Chargers. Why do you think that is? Is it a styles clash that suits the Chargers, or do they just kind of seem to bring it against the Chiefs because they know the Chiefs are the top dog in the division?
Well, I think it's more the latter, but I'd also say that athletically, the Chargers are a match for the Chiefs. It's perplexing to see what's happened to the Chargers. Let's talk overall about them and how big this game is. What's obvious is that the AFC West, if the Chiefs win this game, they'll have a vice grip on the division with a 3-game lead and a tiebreaker on the Chargers, and that's the only team really that can challenge them at this point. But it's bigger for the Chargers on a bigger scene, meaning the Chargers were 8-5 to start last year, and since that 8-5 start a year ago, they're 6-7. Justin Herbert is 20-21 as a starter in the National Football League, and I think if you poll folks that follow the league, they would miss that question. They think he's over 500 and just smoking hot, putting up stats. Well, he needs this game to 500. So there's some bigger issues here for the Chargers. But to answer your question, I think athletically they're a good match. They also have like a Derwin James Jr. in place. One of your stats of the night is the fact that when Derwin James Jr. is singled on a tight end, he's only allowed 4 yards per catch, 4 yards per catch to a tight end, by far the best in the last 2 years in the National Football League. So they feel like Derwin James can handle Kelsey. Well, there aren't many teams that have Derwin James Jr., but the Chargers do. So when you look at them athletically, I think, one, they're motivated, but two, athletically, they kind of match up against the Chiefs.
Just a few more questions for the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. Brought to you, as always, by our good friends at both Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union as we look ahead to the Chiefs and Chargers this weekend. And, Mitch, I just want to follow up really quickly about the point about the Chargers themselves. And, Justin Herbert's got all the talent in the world. He's got that it factor. I think that kind of jumps out when you see him actually rip the ball down the field. But why do you think they are what they are this year? Like, I ran the numbers. He's getting the last 4 weeks, averaging 5 yards an attempt. I mean, I know they're injured, but what has happened to that team? It feels like they should be able to push the ball more than they are. And right now, their offense is honestly kind of hard to watch.
Well, that's the biggest nuggets I can give you of the night, where it's perplexing. On the defensive side, with the talent that they've got, why are only two teams worse against the run than the Chargers? And they've allowed explosive runs, 4 50-plus yard runs allowed this year by the Charger defense. The league average is 1. Okay, now let's go to Herbert and the offense. Herbert is second in the NFL in completions and in attempts. In fact, he's working on an all-time NFL record for completions in a single season. Yards per pass, he's at the bottom of the league. You alluded to it. He's 31st, I guess next to last. And that doesn't usually equate to the second most attempts. Now, a lot of it has to do with the injuries to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. But they still have Joshua Palmer, and they still got Carter. It's like there's dudes to throw to, and they can try to get their tight ends down the field. But they're just not. He's just living on checkdowns and circle routes and angle routes to Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler has 81 targets for a running back, which is by far the most in the league, and 67 catches. Let's give a comparison here. Travis Kelce has 84 targets, and Eckler has 81, and Eckler's a running back. In fact, Eckler is working on an all-time. He's on pace for an all-time NFL record for receptions by a running back. But talk about dink and dunk. It has been, you mentioned 5-yard average. It's just throw to Eckler and hope he can break a tackle. And that's what they've been the last several weeks for sure, but even kind of all season long. And they've lost Rashawn Slater. I know their left tackle from Northwestern. But still, you'd think they would take shots. They've got dudes they can take shots with. And they're going to get Keenan Allen back and Mike Williams back this week. But their offense has definitely been just, hey, check down to Eckler or angle route to Eckler and hope he can break some tackles.
Speaking of that Chargers offensive line, and it is tough for them to lose a player like Slater, who had such a good rookie year a season ago, and they've had problems with offensive line depth for, decades now, it feels like. What do you think we can expect from Frank Clark in his first game back off the 2-game suspension and the bye week? He's essentially been off for 3 weeks now.
He's a little bit like the running back situation or the offense, because I would expect no more than, and this isn't a knock against Frank, this is where the Chiefs are right now. He becomes a piece. It's just a blend of, because we've seen Carlos Dunlap have an impact, and we've seen Karlaftis have an impact up there. And Mike Danikin, he's the one that broke Herbert's ribs in week 2. And so you've got, it's just a mix. It's one more giant good mix in the mix. is to put Frank in there. But for folks to think Frank will play 60 snaps and get 5 sacks in this game is presumptuous. But when Frank can be rested and not have to grind away at 50 or 60 snaps a game, it makes Frank all the more effective.
The Kansas City Chiefs coming up on Sunday night, back in primetime, will take on the Los Angeles Chargers in a huge game with AFC West implications. And to talk all about it, as always, joining us here on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk is the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azure Credit Union. Mitch, we appreciate you jumping on with us a little bit earlier today because of K-State Hoops, so thank you so much. And we'll talk to you next week, hopefully after the 4th win in a row for Kansas City.
Yeah, it would be nice to be 8-2. The other thing just to mention before we get off here is that Chris Jones is having this magnificent season.
Absolutely.
He's the number one rated interior defensive lineman in the entire league and has been for, this is week 11, for 9 of the 11 weeks. He's ahead of Aaron Donald. The fact that he's just become this super impact player is worthy of mention as we close.
He has been absolutely tremendous as of late. Mitch, thank you so much. We appreciate the time.
Thanks, guys.
That is Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk. Good stuff as always from Mitch. Appreciate him being flexible with his time with us today since we are off early due to the K-State games. We didn't really get to it because of the, we have only so much time to chat with Mitch. But I've got to be honest, this McCole Hardman news sucks. I never thought I would get to a point with this team and with McCole Hardman where I'd say, man, it sucks that he's not going to be out there for the offense. But you said it earlier. You feel for him because they have finally started using him in a way that is conducive to his unique talents more than they ever have before, even more than his rookie year when he had the 6 touchdowns or whatever. And then to get hurt and effectively have your replacement step in and immediately have the big role last week, probably again now for at least the next 4 games, that's rough. That's really rough for McCole Hardman.
Yeah, especially because contract year for him and a chance to go out and show either the Chiefs or one of the other 31 teams that he's worth a significant investment moving forward. And I think he was starting to show that he was capable of that. I don't think he's ever going to be a great downfield threat, or at least not the downfield threat that his speed suggests that he should be, but certainly was having a productive season and kind of coming into his own in his role in the offense. And it sounds like a friend of the program, Matt Verderam, had on Twitter a suggestion that it is not likely to cost Hardman any more than the requisite 4 games on IR. Now, unlike the baseball injured list, injured reserve is not retroactive. So he missed last week's game. He's on injured reserve now. That means he cannot play in any of the next 4 games. He will miss at least the next 4 weeks. So it is not retroactive to last week.
Not like the IL.
Exactly. So he's going to miss the next 4 games, but it sounds like there's a lot of optimism that he can be back right around 4 weeks. And certainly hope for his sake and the Chiefs' sake that is the case. They had Marquez Valdez-Scantling back practicing today on a limited basis. Obviously, you have Tony, you have Sky Moore, you have Justin Watson, who've been around all year. Couple of practice squad options as well. But, the depth takes a hit this week with no Hardman for sure, and increasingly looking like there will be no Juju Smith-Schuster as he misses practice for a second straight day in the concussion protocol.
I don't think the Chiefs are going to need an especially deep wide receiver room to win this game this week, but it would be nice to at least have MVS out there.
I think he's going to play. He coming back from the illness, he was limited. I would expect he would play this week, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah,
and I'm guessing, considering that Chris Lamons is the also in the concussion protocol, that means the Chiefs need a wide receiver and somebody who can help them on special teams. Marcus Kemp, come on down.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. I would be shocked if he's not called up from the practice squad for this matchup. We're going to take one more time out here on 580 Sports Talk. We will wrap up a shortened edition of the show coming up after this with the final word. Time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk. We're out early because the K-State men tip at 5:30, so pregame begins here in just about 2.5 minutes. So before we get to that, let's get to a final word.
Should be a really fun night of basketball at Bramlage Coliseum tonight. I expect K-State to put on a show against a pretty weak Kansas City team. I would expect it would be a very crowd-pleasing performance for the Tang Gang in the men's game tonight. And then the women's game, one of the best players in the country, the women's game answer to Steph Curry in the college game right now, Caitlin Clark from Iowa in town tonight. So 2 really good games at Bramlage. Good challenge, I think, coming ahead for the K-State women. And the K-State men, I think, will put on a show tonight.
Do you know where UMKC is ranked in KenPom right now?
339th.
Better than that. 296.
Oh.
Still horrible, but slightly better than that. I'm surprised they didn't drop more after losing to a bad Division II team. Final word for me. We'll just go back to what we were just talking about. Stinks from McCole Hardman. He's not going to be out there. I don't think the Chiefs are going to need him to beat the Chargers like we talked about earlier. I think on paper the Chiefs should dominate in this game. But if you hadn't bought Kadarius Toney stock yet, buy up. Buy as many shares as you can because I think we're going to see plenty of Toney coming up at least within the next 4 weeks. That'll do it for this shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk. We will be back with a full show coming up tomorrow. Matt Derrick is going to join us. We'll preview the football weekend, our keys to the game for Chiefs Chargers. That's coming up from 3 to 6 tomorrow. So until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We'll take a break. K-State basketball is next on 580 WIBW.